Greetings, everybody, and Major League Baseball shooting itself in the foot. So, Major League Baseball's Players Association rejected the latest offer from the owners. The owners have answered, and I'm going to read out their statement on this phone here after we're done talking about this. This could get really ugly. So, is it going to be a return to work order? So, Major League Baseball could go to court and say we're ordering them all back on the field and prorate salaries, and then the players could sue for damages up to $1 billion, depending on what. Holy crap! Could be a 50-game season. At that point, baseball fans say, "Well, what's the point of a season?" To which NHL fans say, "Yeah, a season of less than 50 games sucks." And all kidding aside, this is ugly. And this now, I know it's not officially a lockout. I know it's not officially a strike. It's a lockout and a strike. This is two sides that do not like one another. This is two sides that do not trust one another. This is two sides that really don't want to sit in a room together, where it's to the point where they're like, we don't trust anything that they have to say. Keep in mind, between 1972 and 1995, there were eight labor stoppages between the union and the player and the owners. And the 2016 agreement, players didn't like it because it kept the salaries pretty flat because, who can live on $25 million or $30 million? So I'm sorry, but just to me, I don't know. I have a hard time feeling bad for either side in this, because on one side you got players who make a lot of money, and on the other side you got the Yankees make a lot of money. And you look at other professional sports and you see the agreements that are being made. You see the NBA trying to figure out a way to come back. They're going to play in Orlando. The NHL, you're going to have two hub cities. Major League Soccer, you're going to have a tournament going on. What do these leagues all have in common? That the union and ownership are at least talking things through. There's some level of cooperation now in the NHL that we're seeing that we're not seeing in baseball. There's a level of cooperation we're seeing in the NBA we are not seeing in baseball. I hate to say it, but a prolonged lockout, a prolonged strike, followed by a salary cap, might be the best way forward for Major League Baseball. And I never thought I'd see the day I said that either. I really didn't. I never thought I'd see the day that I said, maybe the best thing in all sports is a salary cap. It forces both sides to work together. It forces the owners to open their books. So when an owner says to you, hey, I can't afford to pay you $20 an hour, I'll pay you 10. Well, how much better of a position are you in if you can look at their books and go, yeah, you can afford to pay more than that. And you can afford to pay my coworkers as well. And that's the idea behind the way things work with the NHL, NBA, and other leagues with salary caps. Now, there's still that mistrust of what are they qualifying as revenues? What are they qualifying as expenses? Are they cooking the books at all? That happens, but not at a level like we see with baseball. Holy crap, just the amount of mistrust. Now, in one of the statements I've seen from the players' side, they're giving a Monday deadline. Like, tell us by Monday night what you're going to do, because we're done. We don't want to sit down and talk. It's fruitless. It's useless. These guys are not talking the same language at all. They are worlds apart. Players want $2.25 billion in their salaries, minimum. They were set to make $4 billion this year, so they're saying, "Hey, we've already given back some money. We're only making $2.25 billion this year. We're not giving anything back." And I don't know how tone deaf players realize that they look in this economic situation that we're all finding ourselves in, but they look pretty darn tone deaf. Basketball's already accepted a rollback for next year. The NHL's already accepted that next year's salary cap's not going up, and the next one probably won't either. And they're using this as a time to talk about extending their agreement. The NBA's talking about this as a time to work together. And baseball is just, well, we're not giving up our money. Well, neither are we. And according to the owners, what the players are trying to negotiate right now is not what they agreed upon in March. So the problem is when they agreed in March, apparently they didn't agree in March. So let's just take a look at this. This is what Major League Baseball had to say. We are disappointed that the Major League Baseball Players Association has chosen not to negotiate in good faith over resumption of play after MLB has made three successive proposals that would provide players, clubs, and our fans with an amicable resolution to a very difficult situation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. So they're saying they're not negotiating in bad faith or in good faith. That's not a good start. The MLBPA understands that the agreement reached on March 26th was premised on the parties' mutual understanding the players would be paid their full salaries only if play resumed in front of fans, and that another negotiation was to take place if clubs could not generate the billions of dollars of ticket revenue required to pay players. That seems reasonable. And I'm not trying to say that the owners on this side are angels and they're all running around with halos and cloaks, because we know they're not. But it sounds reasonable to say, listen, if we only make $20 instead of $50, that's going to change things. And, again, the players are saying, no, we've already made concessions. But if this is read properly, that means they didn't agree on the concessions in March. They just went, we'll just go forward and we'll deal with that later. The MLBPA's position that players are entitled to virtually all of the revenue from a 2020 season played without fans is not fair to the thousands of other baseball employees that clubs and our office are supporting financially during this very difficult 2020 season. And this is where a labor stoppage gets ugly. I remember this with hockey too, where the owners all said, hey, fans, this is for you. We're doing this for you because, boy, these player salaries are crazy and those ticket prices are way too high. And we think this is terrible. We want to be able to pay a fair wage to our workers, and we think this is terrible. And then they got their salary cap, and then ticket prices went up and crickets. So, again, this is very similar. This is one of those, man, you really want to hurt all these fine people? That's too bad. We will evaluate the union's refusal to adhere to the terms of the March agreement, and after consulting with ownership, determined the best course to bring baseball back to our fans. That's not great. But again, depending on who you are watching this, you might say, it's on the owners. Or you might say, well, it's on the players. But clearly these guys have not been talking the same language from the start. And this right here, the word mistrust. That's it. In a nutshell, it is a lack of trust between the players and the owners. It's just not there. There's none. It's scorched earth. So, for me, a guy who felt, all right, well, hockey's gone, basketball's gone, I guess I'm covering baseball this summer. I thought I was going to be covering baseball games. I got the almanac for this year. I was ready to start going through and figuring out who's playing where and who had the best chance to be where, and I was all excited to start talking baseball again. But this has just killed it. Because again, you've got owners and players not talking the same language. And until you come up with a situation where they do, the owners have to open up their books and be honest. The players have to be honest about things like, if you don't get $25 million and you only get 20, it's not collusion. This is something that's just ridiculous. When I see a player sign a huge contract and then it's, well, this would have been another $4 million, but all the GMs colluded to make sure I didn't get it. Are you bloody serious? Maybe all the GMs agreed you weren't worth the $24 million and they gave you 20. I don't know how exactly that's collusion or why. Because then if this guy's worth 24 and you're only paying 20, and you watch him go somewhere else instead of going to your team and you could have paid 24, you're biting off your nose to spite your face. I don't know how you get through this if you're Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball can definitely afford a shutdown. They can afford to lose a whole season, and I don't see how they don't. And again, in comparison with other leagues, some that are on their way back, some that are already practicing, some that have already come back, and there are sports that have already come back in North America as well. They found a way to make it as safe as possible. I don't know. And then baseball players too saying, well, we want this to be a safe manner. Well, then you have to agree to hub cities. To me, where baseball loses me is the idea that these guys are going to play in all their home parks, and that's going to work. That increases travel costs with no benefit of tickets. You guys want to keep your money, then you have to kind of agree to hub cities, because then you're cutting down on the travel costs for the teams, and you're making it where it is a safer environment. So I don't know. It's exhausting to deal with, and the back and forth. And I know a couple weeks ago, I had people saying, "Oh, you're wrong. Major League Baseball is already coming back. What are you talking about?" I'm sorry, but every time I see an agreement that looks reasonable, that we as sports fans can look at and go, "Yeah, that seems fair," the other side will say no. the other side will say, this isn't fair, this isn't what we agreed to, we're not going to sign this. And so while we're not in a strike or lockout situation, it sure feels like it. It sure feels like during a summer where we can all talk about how safe having sports going on is a conversation, this is something different. This is a sign that there's something fundamentally broken between owners and players, that there's something fundamentally broken that having tons and tons of money to roll around in has helped hide for a long time, but now it's bubbling to the surface. And if you're a small market team, salary cap helps. If you're the Yankees, you have no interest in a salary cap whatsoever. I would say the same of probably teams like the Red Sox. But again, even if it's not a salary cap, whatever it is, you have to come up with a situation where both sides are at least speaking the same language, agreeing on what is and isn't revenue, and on how everybody should get paid. Because until then, nothing's going to change. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and never underestimate Major League Baseball's ability to shoot itself in the foot. I will talk to you again soon.